So certain matchups just get you excited before you even see the moves, right? And this is one of them. We've got Alireza Firouzja, 20 years old, top 5 player in the world, expert tactician and blitz and rapid player, playing with white here, and his opponent is Nodirbek Abdusattorov, 18 years old, also in the 2700 club, super Grandmaster, and this is just a phenomenal game with a crazy mating net weaved at the end. Now this is the Julius Baer Generational Cup. It's online chess, 15 minutes each, plus 3 seconds a move. That's known as increment for anyone who doesn't know the chess terms. And this is game 2. Alireza already won game 1 with the black pieces. So let's check this one out. He kicks off with d4. So Nodirbek goes d5, c4, e6, and now g3 starts a Catalan pawn structure. We get knight f6, bishop g2, and now an unusual move by Nodirbek, because normally you see this bishop developing somewhere or takes on c4, but what we see here is c5. Now this pawn structure is known as the Tarrasch pawn structure, named after Siegbert Tarrasch, former world champion, but you don't often see it against the Catalan. You know, you're opening this diagonal and everything like that. So how is Nodirbek going to get developed? Well, here Alireza, he takes on d5, and now we don't see pawn captures. Very common recapture in the Tarrasch pawn structure, where black accepts the IQP, isolated queen's pawn, but gets good development. But instead, we see knight takes. So knight f3 carries on, now takes on d4, Alireza recaptures, bishop c5, already a relatively unusual position. Both players castle, and now knight c3, it's Alireza who accepts a worse pawn structure here, but he gets rapid development. And this is a really key moment, because look at this bishop. How is black going to develop the queen side here? White's got a lead in development. This could get dangerous. So here's the point of Nodirbek's play. He goes pawn to e5. He drives back the knight with tempo, but importantly, he opens this square for his bishop to develop. Now the bishop is attacked on c5, so it drops back to d6, and now great play by Alireza, developing with tempo. He goes bishop g5, hitting the black queen, and if black takes here, then white takes here, and without going through the details, that's better for white. So we see queen c7, no f6 either, by the way, weakens this diagonal too much towards the king. Now queen d2 played, prepares to double, attack this bishop. We see knight c6, rook fd1, and now bishop a3 saves that bishop, which was attacked, and it's a really annoying niggly square. You know, it covers c1, which would then be a defensive square of this pawn, and it now clears the d file. If you ever kick this bishop, well, black could start challenging. And now Alireza decides this is the moment to change the pawn structure. So he pushes with c4, preparing to put his bishop on d5 using that outpost. We see bishop e6, bishop d5 played, and now the game gets really sharp. This is why I love these guys. You know, the computer here, it wants bishop g4, trying to provoke a weakness, then maybe going to h3 or back to d7. It doesn't want to take here, then pawn recaptures is too powerful, kicks the knight, plus the pawn can be advancing, but what it doesn't want as a top move is pawn a5, which Nodirbek played, because this allows the pawn structure to be ruined, although the point that Nodirbek's got here is a5 is coming, a4 sorry, kicking this knight, and where's it actually jumping? You know, all the good jumps are taken away. So that's why queen d7. Alireza prepares to swap queens, bring his rook in, but also gives his knight a square on d2. So we see captures, rook captures. This looks horrible for black, but after rook f7, we'll see Nodirbek is just in time, because Alireza doubles, but now a4 comes, and you've no time for knight d2, or you interrupt the connection between the rooks, and then this one drops off. So we see takes on f7, king recaptures, now the knight retreats, and so the rook can't advance. You know, black's got to move to try and stabilize. But here, Nodirbek goes wrong. he goes bishop b2 and leaves this important diagonal. He should start with something like king g6, put a question here, knight e4, but then rook c8. The bishop still covers key jumps for the knight, and this rook starts pressuring this pawn, plus the king has stepped away from checks. This was the way to go. But what we see in the game is bishop b2, knight e4, a3, this is the point of Nodirbek's play, and now he wants knight b4 to a2, chop that one off, looks really dangerous, but now Alireza builds an initiative. He goes check, king g6, and g4 is an awesome move. That black king is currently in a mating net. Imagine two moves for white here, h4, h5, you're getting mated. So h6, important move. Kick back the bishop straight away, give the king some room. We see bishop d2, rook a4 now played to pressure the c4 pawn, also allows the knight to potentially jump to b4. This bishop now covers that square when it drops back. And now knight d6 from Alireza, he's just turning the screw on the counterplay. So he covers this pawn, there's also pressure on b7, and now Nodirbek here, he goes for counterplay, good idea in blitz chess. So he pushes on, plays e4, gets rid of one of those doubled pawns if Alireza wants to take it, but he doesn't do so immediately, or he drops c4. So instead, he snaps off the pawn on b7, good move. Now knight e5, this is one of the points of Nodirbek's pawn push, clearing that square for the knight. It hits two pawns here, but rook b4, what an exceptional defense from Alireza. No time to take the pawn with the knight, or the rook drops off the board. And if you take here, well, after bishop recaptures, bishop takes on g4, this is a really dangerous endgame. The pawn is passed, the knight has to come back, and now you don't even take here as the best move, but knight b5. You're picking up this pawn, and you've now got two passed pawns. Black pawns are doubled, good endgame for white, even a pawn ahead. So what we see played is pawn e3. Now Nodirbek is trying to distract this bishop. Then the rook drops. You have to stay with the defense. So Alireza captures with the pawn. Now why has Nodirbek done this given a pawn? Well, he's shattered these ones. Maybe it creates counterplay around the white king later on. And now rook a6 played. Again, you don't want to swap the rooks. The endgame is bad. The knight is hit. c5 defends. Rook c6 attacks this pawn, but great defensive move by Alireza. Because if you go rook b5 to defend, then the g pawn drops, not ideal. Equally, you can't come to c4, the knight covers the square. So Alireza, he finds this move of knight to b7 to cover the pawn. Doesn't go knight e4 either, by the way, or the black knight takes here. And now rook c7 pressures that knight and then inadvertently pressures the g pawn. There's a threat for the knight to take here. Actually, how does that line go? Because after you take here, white takes back with check. Okay, well, the rook's kind of got two jobs here, defending both of those. I didn't click too deeply on the line. But the point being, Alireza now goes h3 just to cover this pawn. His rook's not got a babysit. It can stay active with this one. So h5 now played to break up those pawns. We get captures with check. King recaptures and bishop e1, swinging round to this horrible diagonal, but g5 played, allowing that move because the rook can sidestep, preparing to invade, and this bishop still covers the knight. But knight d6, good play from Alireza, shuts down the d-file counterplay. Now knight back to c6, hits the rook, it saves itself on b6, counterattacks the knight. The knight drops back to e7. Look at those amazing jumps which it has in the future. But Alireza, he turns the screw with this next move of pawn to c6. This one a monster, covering the knight. The rook has to move. And now the killer blow here is this rook b7. Black is just not in time. If you take the pawn with the knight, well, your rook drops off the board. And if, as we see in the game, the rook captures, well, then the knight drops. And there's nothing better, if you take here, the pawn's basically going through, or you're chucking loads of material to try and hold on to it. This is kind of a sample line. Game is dead. So coming back here, we see pawn captured. Now this one drops. Rook down here to try and get some counterplay. But now after Alireza takes, look at the state of that black king. It literally has no moves, but Nodirbek is playing on seconds. He goes bishop a2, looking to take this pawn, counterplay, but knight f5, rook takes, and the trap is shut with a checkmate. Beautiful finish by Alireza, and this then gave him a 2-0 lead, and he went on to convert the match 3-0, didn't even need the fourth game. Now, just briefly coming back, could black have avoided this? You know, what happens if you go g4, trying to break out with the king? Well, not really, you can't. You know, bishop f4 can now be played, again threatening mate, and if takes, check, you drive the king down, check, king back, something like this, and after the king steps here, you've got this discovery, you pick up the rook, and coming back here, you know, if you step down here, then you walk into knight f5 mate. So nothing black could really have done. Great game by Alireza, really enjoyed this battle, I hope you did too. Do hit like and subscribe if you did, and check out another epic video on screen to see another great game of chess. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.